My name is Jonny Lebeau. I started my comedy career doing improv at the University of Ottawa. I was doing bachelor's in biomedical sciences, but in my third year, I kind of had the insight that what felt more meaningful was comedy over kind of becoming a doctor, much to the chagrin of my mother. But we both knew that I wasn't cut out to be a doctor. So she was, I'm sure, in some ways, happier that I went with that. I did a lot of Second City conservatory training, and I kind of realized that, like, if I wanted a career in comedy, I needed to learn how to write because there was going to be more opportunity behind the screen than there was in front of the screen. So then I kind of took a UCB class in New York, and then that 1 week intensive kind of catapulted my interest clearly into the world of sketch, and that was like my biggest joy. From there on, I thought interning would be the best thing. So then I was lucky enough to like secure the first one at like Sam B, Full Frontal with Samantha B, and then a year later I got like Daily Show, and then that whole story kind of has to do with why I'm here in some ways, which is like running out of time, is because it's about a Canadian boy who's just running out of time on his student visa.
His name is Jonny Lebeau. He is currently on a US student visa that is set to expire at the end of this year. To become a US citizen, or to get on a better visa. To find an American to marry him.
I grew a mustache, I hunkered down, I asked my dad to film a lot of takes of me talking to innocent omeglers and people with my last name, and I put my master's to good use.
Do you prefer an outdoor US wedding or an indoor US wedding because you are in the US?
Outdoor.
Outdoor, great.
So basically, I didn't necessarily have a home for the footage that I had. But the story that I was trying to tell was like decently long in terms of runtime. At this day and age is a lot to ask of anyone. At most, it feels like our attention only can last 7 seconds or so. I didn't know how to tell this story in a way that I felt could sustain my audience for the whole way. And I think some people would say that's because you're a bad writer, but I would tell my dad to be quiet for a minute. And I would tell him that, like, I think what Whatify does really well is that kind of the clip length takes a maybe, 10-minute story, but then divide it into 1 or 2-minute clips. It makes it feel more manageable as an audience and more engaging as they're able to kind of propel the comedic engine forward themselves by making the decision as to which character they want me to see next. So I thought that Whatify really gave me a platform that none other could for this idea specifically.
Like many people, I believe in love at first sight. I just believe that sight is Omegle.
So for me, like, I think first of all, what felt most special about it was just how hands-on the creative team was, in terms of really being there to guide me with how to find the most success coming from, linear storytelling, which is basically where everyone is coming from in terms of a background. In my first pass of trying to build it, I didn't necessarily understand how to ensure that what I was doing was empowering the audience as much, because I think part of the joy of successfully creating a film on Whatify is that there's that nice balance between audience feeling like they actually have a role in the story that is unfolding in front of them, and also doing it in a way that there is genuine payoff for the decisions that they're making. I would say the most helpful thing for me was actually start with your endings and then find the means to get there, because part of the joy is collecting all endings, really. From a funding standpoint, first of all, it gave me the confidence as a creator for the first time to really be paid for creating content. I think it was, I felt valuable, which is like a very nice feeling to have. And it also allowed me to spend the time that I needed to really deliver the product that I felt most proud of. So I think not only was I guided, but I was also held. And that sounds like a mother. Whatify is the Filmmaker Fund is a strong mother figure in my eyes. I would say one challenge that comes to mind is that in my first pass of building the story, I was sharing or showing footage that was still passive to an audience member. In sharing that with the creative team, they came back to me and said, like, the pieces are here, the energy is there, but you aren't giving the audience an active role in deciding who they want to see. And it really helped that the format that I picked, which was Omegle, the audience knows that those are genuine functions that I haven't created, but Omegle already has built in. So there is inherently decisions being made on Omegle right now as we speak. So being able to like find kind of that hat on a hat of like, okay, Whatify is all about giving audience decisions, and Omegle is actually all about, do I want to talk with this stranger or not? Because they might be trying to marry me. I would say that was probably the biggest challenge, because never before in my stories was I ever trying to give the audience the lever or the steering wheel. But now I'm trying to share it at the right moments. It's like when we're learning to drive a car, like we're going to try and ask our parent if we can lean over and just like touch the steering wheel a little bit. And there's like, oh, that was exciting. And then, and then you give it back. And then, yeah. What feels really special and unique about working with Whatify is kind of how it does take its background, which was in theater before becoming an app. I think they've stayed pretty true to that kind of like, I don't know if it's like a theater mantra of, it just feels like really like wholesome or close. And that the success of the films really feel like everyone's top goal. I have greatly enjoyed sharing my film with family and friends and watching them feel like they're in control of the story. I do really like creating content that feels relatable, and especially in the pandemic, when even though my first love is sketch comedy, I didn't have the opportunity to work with a sketch group. So I had to kind of look inward for the funny in my life happening at the time. As much as everything that was the foundation of this story was a genuine fact about me, I think that what was a big learning hurdle was how to play the character that is on Omegle.
Or what's Drippy's vibe?
I don't know, man. He's just an American person.
That is literally my type. That is literally all I'm looking for.
In the first takes, like I was so nervous that I was like holding on to my like test, that I was like the minute that they would answer it, I was like, okay, thank you. And I was like, okay, Johnny, that's not funny. And then I would like share it with the creative team, and they'd be like, okay, like this isn't exactly, funny yet. And it was because I was like just too nervous and I didn't know how to have fun within the space. And I think that like what's cool about Whatify specifically is that it like each decision begins to reveal the perspective of the character more and more. And often, the character that I was playing was one who was dumb and desperate, So I would say like that was the first fun hurdle, to feel comfortable enough in front of a complete stranger. And of course, if I got too nervous, I could just skip. So there was a nice opportunity there. But I do like improvising, and that was kind of like a background that I had leading up to sketch. So getting a chance to ask kind of absurd questions. One of the questions I had in my thing was like, am I falling in love? Yes. Oh, sorry, that was a question for myself. And like that was a moment when like the person kind of caught on a little bit more as to like, oh, okay, that's kind of funny, or I see what he's doing.
Generally speaking, do you like picking someone's last name?
Yes, I consider that as bonding.
Cool. Well, that is great.
The very first time, I don't think I really did Omegle when I was young. For one night, I went on just to like genuinely ask people how does this thing work? Because I want to do something. I have an idea. How does it work? And like one guy, I think had a Rubik's cube, and he's like, hey, wait, do you want me to solve it? And then I'd be like, okay, I'm in. And then some people, if I just said hi, it wasn't enough to hold them there. So that was like when the survey felt like, okay, I need this part in order for the thing to succeed. I had a bunch of unusable footage of people who were too nervous to show their face. It was like, that was a thing. I genuinely did not see that many like wieners. And that was like that was nice. After the whole itself, me and my parents, like, we would have little laughs, like, how come things didn't work with you and Anna or whatever, so especially in times of pandemic, like, you run out of things to talk about. So like creating content and something that involved the family like that was actually really fun for us to be like, oh, that was silly. And like, yeah, just nice times.